everybody. Welcome to the Homeowner Survival Series. I'm Robin Collegesi, the Director of Marketing at ServPro of Upper Bucks, Germantown, and Pennypack Bustleton. Today's Homeowner Survival Series, which is designed to help homeowners, be prepared. Every month we have a different topic. We've done spring cleaning. We've done a lot of fun things that people have, really took a lot away from. So with May, Hurricane Preparedness Week is coming up. I actually now call May Hurricane Preparedness Month, even though hurricane season doesn't technically start until June. So next slide is just an introduction of myself and Mike. We are the two main instructors with ServPro of Upper Bucks, Pennypack, Bustleton, and Germantown. Mike is also owner and OSHA certified instructor with Focus Safety Training, which I am now an instructor of as well. And there's just our contact information if anybody's interested in reaching out with any questions. We definitely we like to keep these informal and fun, and we like to ad-lib a lot as we go along. So please feel free to unmute your microphone, ask questions, point out anything that you want clarification on, or any stories you have to tell. It makes the entire hour a lot more fun, and we all learn something that way. So again, May is what I call Hurricane Preparedness Month, even though the season doesn't start until June 1st. I always tell people, we're in the business of preparedness, and we try to prepare people fire, flood, any kind of disaster. And the time to prepare is not when it's happening. It's not the day before the forecast is calling for a hurricane. You want to prepare now. That's why May has Hurricane Preparedness Week. This is where you want to go through all your inventory, and we'll go into detail with what you need to do, but this is where you want to be prepared. So when that forecast comes, you have a little bit peace of mind knowing like, I already did that, and I already did that, and I am ready for a hurricane. If we learned anything from the last 16 months with coronavirus and COVID and SARS-CoV-2 was we weren't prepared, and the country wasn't prepared. The world wasn't prepared. And if we learned anything, it's about how important preparedness really is. Now, hurricanes typically don't really hit the East Coast, Northeast Coast where we are that often, though we are seeing an uptick in them over the last couple of years. Hurricane Sandy, that was devastating, $65 billion in damage. And that hit every single state up and down the East Coast from Florida to Maine. It also got as far inland as Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin. So we can have devastating hurricanes here in our area. Pam, where are you again?
We're in Fernandina Beach, North Florida, Amelia Island.
Okay.
We'll recognize it by Amelia.
Yes. So
you should probably be giving this course.
Right.
Oh, I'm taking notes.
I'm sure you have dealt with your share of hurricanes.
Since I've been on board, we haven't really had any that, but our goal this season is obviously if it does impact us, get ready to handle what we can handle, and then if it doesn't impact us directly, be able to travel for storm.
Gotcha. Yeah, so we, Hurricane Sandy was probably our biggest hit back, 7-8 years ago now, maybe even 9. But last year, we took, if you want to get to the next slide, Becca, with Hurricane, I always say this wrong, Isaias. I wrote it down phonetically so I would say it right. Hurricane Isaias last August 4th, that's a date that will forever be ingrained in my head, hit our area very hard. It was a Category 1 hurricane, and it caused extensive damage across the Caribbean and up and down the East Coast. And it caused quite a number of tornado outbreaks. And it was the strongest hurricane to hit us since 2005, Hurricane Rita. And our ServPro franchises took in 300 emergency calls in a 24-hour period. We felt like we did set our own record, and it was all hands on deck. And I was working from home where I am right now, and I had just walked out to assess I was looking out my front window and I saw water and it was pouring. And I was like, I better just go out and check what's going on. And this next slide, I took video. I think we're going to keep it muted because I do think I curse in it a couple times. But this is what I saw when I went out of my house. And this was just my front yard. We have a little creek. And when I say little creek, you can straddle it with your 2 feet for the most part. And which is all the way back in the horizon of this video. And the water was just coming up at uncontrollable measures. The road out in front of my house, people were getting stuck, cars were abandoned. And that force of that water, you can see in the back there, there's like white caps. That's where, I think this is where I'm cursing, going like, holy blank, there's white caps. And it was terrifying to see that much water that quickly.
Just to put it in perspective for people outside of our area that don't know our area very well, we're about 130 miles away from the coast. So right. When these things make it inland, I don't know what I mean by that, but it made it inland far enough. We've had a couple of hits over the years, just locally, where we didn't have to travel for storm because we were getting inundated in our own area and up in the Poconos and things like that. So don't happen often, but every couple of years we do get a nice pop of work from it. But otherwise, you're right. It's Pam. It's more of a travel thing. We can go help. That's what we did. We rented a house down the shore. And in Ocean City, New Jersey. And we just worked from, that was our base camp for a month and a half.
That's awesome. That's good. I'm trying to get pointers on how y'all prepare so we can, our owner, of course, has done it, but all of it, I don't know about y'all, but we've had turnaround with employees. So we're trying to prepare everyone and get everyone same page for storm, or if it was to hit here, what we would do.
Yeah, it's just the storm is the big one that's difficult, the traveling, and this is turning into a ServPro thing, so I will stop after this, but you just have to be telling your guys, like every WIT meeting, hey guys, like remember, we're heading into storm season. We are a storm traveling company. You guys need to be prepared. Who has their go bag ready? Who keeps reminding their wife or their girlfriend that they may have to leave for a couple of weeks. You do have to set the mindset so that it's not shocking them. We've literally had 2 people in the course of our 20 years that we kept telling them to get ready. And then when they went home to get their stuff, we never heard from them again.
Oh.
It's just the pressure of it. Once the reality struck, they were like, I'm not going. And they went home and they never called us again.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, and that's kind of a good segue into, after I shot that video, I came inside my house and I was taking my boots off and my phone rang. And it was a plumber that I know, a local big plumber and contracting company. And I was like, oh, hey, Jeff, not putting 2 and 2 together. And the panic in his voice was, I need ServPro right now. Come, I'm in Quakertown Shopping Center. The medical building's flooding. And this is what I drove up to. I literally just kept my boots on and jumped in the Jeep because I was about 2 miles from there. And knowing that we were getting 300 calls, I mean, the phone was not stopping, and every one of our crew members and production managers was out at emergencies. I went over. I had a skort on, my rain boots, and a ServPro top, and this is what I pulled up to. And I think if you click it one more time, you'll see the parking lot of right outside, where I was like, oh my God. And in the next slide, I'll show you a little bit more video. of what I was seeing upon my first entrance. So this was a medical facility, about 100,000 square feet, and the water was just gushing down the front opening door, the main hallway, and all the medical offices were, off to the side, and it was just affecting almost the entire building. And they were open and operating, so they were trying to get patients out while they were trying to, put towels down and whatever they could, the sandbags they went to get to stop the water from continuing to go. And then we had staff that was alarmed about, hundreds of thousands of dollars of MRI equipment. That was fortunately several rooms back, and the water did not rise high enough to affect that equipment. And then there was one point where the one nurse, all she was focused on was this one room where her vaccinations were. They were in a little refrigerator, not a little, it was a pretty big refrigerator, but not like what we think of as a refrigerator. And the water was rising in that room, and she was in a panic that she was going to lose power. And the shelf life of those vaccines was literally only about 45 minutes. So I just grabbed gloves and we went into a back room because I'm on the phone with my production manager and he's at another emergency. So I was really the only face of ServPro at that point. But it gave them, like, I could hear my friend Jeff, the plumber, going, yeah, ServPro's here, ServPro's here. And this property manager's on their way. And there was this like sense of relief that I was there. Like I said, I grabbed a shovel and just started shoveling that water away from the room where the vaccinations were. And we got a lot of that water out of there and was able to put some sandbags up to keep it from rising. And, we're the second first responders, but in this case, I was kind of like the first responder. I was the first person there that was not a medical staff or the plumber. And it gave a sense of that hope is on the way. We can do this. So yeah, this was just last summer. And if this is any indication of what we might have to deal with again this year, they're saying it's going to be a very, very high year again this year for hurricanes and tropical storms.
If I could check with Becca. Becca, is gushing a ServPro term?
Yes.
Okay, so we do call it when we're walking on wet carpet, gushing.
Yeah, she is correct.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that.
I do have a habit of making up my own words, I guess. So hurricanes and tropical storms, obviously they bring a lot of hazards to our area. The high rainfall, the flash flooding, the strong winds, tornadoes. Something to keep in mind for all homeowners, any business owners, really anybody is, summer is also a time that we do like construction projects. We fix things, we're working on things. And that's something that you need to be prepared with in your mind when you go into any type of projects, is that if you're in a low-lying area that's prone to flooding, be prepared for that. So if you're setting up scaffolding, if you're setting up equipment, be prepared to know that, we are in the season. So I'm sorry, I'm going to quick turn my phone off. I apologize, I didn't do that. Quiet. Here's somebody else joining us. So we're going to go over into the first part here is determining your risk. Every building, every structure has a different level of risks, and we're going to go through everything to do to be prepared for this season to come.
Hey, Robin.
Yeah.
To your point there, if I could hold on just a quick second.
Absolutely.
So Hurricane Isaias. So all this grass that you see here did not exist. I had just had this.
You didn't move. Your camera's still on the couch.
No, look at his other window. Look,
Look, I logged in on my phone.
Gotcha.
So all of this grass here did not exist. Well, that upper, you can see that line, that upper grass existed. Most of those trees weren't there. That sandbox up there that we use for volleyball was filled with sand. And you come down here. So, and this right here, none of this was capped and running out. You see how I landlocked it like a jackass. So all this water from most of this roof comes back here. So I completely flooded the pool out. It was covered in mud. It took me almost 4 or 5 days to recover from it. So that's kind of to your point, Robin, is that if you're going to be doing projects, you've got to be aware, you've got to plan your project the right way. As soon as the pool went in, instead of me worrying about trees and additional concrete and some other things, I should have been worrying about drainage. And my landscaper warned me and I ignored him. And then he got the job for fixing it all. So
again, with the landscapers saving the day.
Landscapers are, because that's what their job is. They're out there all the time. They live outside. Like they see these problems. So we really, if you do any, my thoughts now are any yard projects I'm doing, I'm calling a landscaper in to kind of coordinate what I should be doing. I'm having a roof put on the deck and I have my landscaper involved for the water rain off and drainage and all that. So that's it.
Absolutely. And that's really what this all comes down to. Preparedness is about having a plan. And you can have the best plan in the world, but if you're not communicating that plan, it doesn't help anyone. So in this situation, and Maria, this is good for you because when talking about communities and community associations, your residents need to know what that plan is. I always suggest to people like to create a committee, a disaster ready committee within organization communities that can actually be a part of this and help get this information put together, as well as disseminating the information to all the residents. Get people involved. If you just live in a single family home and you're not part of a community or an HOA, have your family involved, have your neighbors involved. But the idea is definitely, create a checklist, assess your property, which includes, looking at your trees, looking at your construction projects, anything you're working on, and make that list. You're assessing your risk, how much damage could actually happen if the worst case scenario happens. And that's what I tell people. Think of the worst case scenario. Are you prepared for that? Be prepared for the worst case scenario. And then next slide. So the first thing you want to do is, inspection is very important. So inspect your home, unit, or structure. I should have an S at the end of that, or structures. You want to ensure that they can withstand that worst case scenario of a hurricane or tropical storm. Again, when you saw that video, I had white caps in my little creek. Water is very, very powerful, and water works with gravity. It goes down. So if you have that excessive flooding, can your property and structures withstand that? If specific structures are prone to flooding, you want to do repairs and improvements for any drainage problems now. And part of that could be installing French drains or addressing foundation issues. Typically, if you are in an area that is just a moist area, like I'm in Upper Bucks County, PA. Quakertown, PA used to be known as the Great Swamp. Why? It was a big swamp, and we still have very, very high swamplands. So every time we get heavy rainfall, I get about 2 feet of water in my basement. It is what it is. We've installed a French drain. We have 2 sump pumps. We do what we can do. But again, water goes down. Where is it going to go? So you need to assess these things and know these things and make a written plan on what needs to be addressed, what could be fixed, what could be improved. But you can't do that without doing a thorough inspection. And your surroundings. When I gave this last year, this part about trees kind of has a different meaning because 2021 is now the year where we're going to see the majority of ash trees. And again, I don't know if this is anything to do with Florida, but here in PA, we have a ash tree situation from the, I forget the name of the insect. That's just ash borer, I think they're called. But they're destroying our ash trees, and dead trees are more likely to come down. So if you walk in any neighborhood, I can walk through my neighborhood and I can point out about 40 dead ash trees that are over 200 feet tall. Inspecting your surroundings and knowing that, especially if you're dealing with some dead trees, that should be addressed now in May, not in August, a week before the hurricane's going to hit, which I made the mistake. I should have actually put a video of this in, but we had a tree come down about 3 years ago onto our front porch, which is a converted family room. And I was standing right there when it came down. It was the scariest thing I ever experienced. It was like a 200-foot tree, but it was half dead. The other trees around the house were fine because they were alive. So you want to inspect your surroundings. You want to especially look at ones in close proximity to your home or your structure. Oh, the emerald ash borer. Sorry, just popped up on my screen. That's what's killing our ash trees. If a tree has not started to bloom by today, today's May 3rd, but by May, it's dead. It's not going to bloom at this point, and they should come down. And you should hire a professional licensed tree remover to remove those trees that could affect your property. And Maria, when it comes to the associations, every association, it has different rules about tree removal and who's responsible. So that would be something you would check your governing documents, obviously, but it would be a good inspection process to go through with any of your board members to provide a full evaluated report on just trees. Here's the tree report. So next, I always say this is also very important, is get an insurance checkup. Policies change, coverage changes, your home can change. People don't realize that sometimes just adding a small improvement could change your homeowner's insurance. You could add, I had a friend once add beautiful like street lights on her driveway. They mimicked like the old English like street lights, but they were ornamental, so to speak. But she did her entire driveway. I think there was like 6 or 8 of them, and she had a tree come down on a few of them. Well, she had not done an insurance checkup in a very long time, and it wound up being covered because it was the tree. But it made her realize that, wow, I never got an insurance checkup. And it's something you should do. You should reach out to your insurance company and just say, you know, this is what I've changed. This is what's different. I want to make sure I have the proper coverage. This is just a good habit to get into every year to do. You know, we do a lot of emergency ready profiles with companies, and that's a big part of it, is get an insurance checkup. And then also with talking about hurricanes / flooding, check your flood coverage, because, you know, like now in Florida, there's going to be a lot more frequent flood coverage because of higher flooding. But where we are, like Mike said, we're 130 miles from the coast. We don't, technically have flood issues that would require additional flood insurance, but your area may be getting more and more prone to floods, and that might be something you need to have additional coverage for. So it's just always good to check it all. Mike, I know you have something to add to that.
I was just going to say that you made the comment, water rolls downhill, so you really have to understand the area you live in. When snow melts off, if we have heavy snow up in the Poconos and the snow melt off, when it comes down the river, it wreaks havoc on the area along the river road, like New Hope and that whole area. And it's used to be, they used to call them 100-year storms, and now they're happening about every 5 years. So, and the other thing is that a lot of the area, I live in Montgomery County. I thought about this. I don't know how I would get around if it wasn't for bridges. There are so many streams and creeks and whatnot in our area, and they flood. So these older bridges that were lower to the ground because the water table was lower at the time, they absolutely wash out during a storm. So, and they wash up the sides, and houses that never got affected by water from the river, from a creek, from a stream, are now getting flooding. So You just have to be aware of that. And you have to start to figure out what you're going to do. What you can physically do, building a berm along that part of your property or whatever to prevent that water from getting onto your property.
And I hear that story so many times. We're a society that is constantly building. We are constantly building developments, new homes. We're constantly evolving in that sense. And it's so frequent that that disruption to our land and environment has an effect somewhere else in that community. And I've seen it. There's two developments here in Upper Bucks, one that's still being, both are actually still being built. And my friend bought a house in the one, and it's called Twin Lakes, and there's two little lakes in the community. And they just started construction maybe a year and a half ago, and they're halfway through the development. And they are having more water issues in basements. I just talked to her yesterday, as a matter of fact, and she's like, because they didn't build this properly on a swamp. Again, we're swampland up here. And so these homeowners are fighting with the contractor who's still building that, we have water in our basement. And some of the houses were built with 3, 4, 5 sump pumps in their basement. So, those effects carry on to your entire community. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
The people that live downriver from like the Poconos, this and that, they call it the blacktopping of America. That's what's causing it. It's the permeable surfaces that are being turned into non-permeable surfaces that won't let the water penetrate into the ground the way it used to. And they don't account for downriver, downstream, down anywhere. What could potentially happen with that water? It has to go somewhere. And if it can't go into the ground, it's going to find its way somewhere. So go ahead, Amanda. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Would you just go back to the slide of the tree with the roots coming up? Yeah, there we go. So I can't see all the houses that are in proximity to that tree, but if you know a tree is dead near your property, but it's not on your property, talk to your neighbors about it and talk to your insurance company about it, because if a tree from your neighbor's property falls on your property, unless you prove that the neighbor was negligent, it becomes your problem and it becomes your homeowner's insurance claim, which you do not want. So example, we have a dead tree right on our property line, but it's our neighbor's, and our insurance company needed us to have a professional tree company come out, evaluate the tree, write a report, and submit it to the insurance company so that if that tree falls on our property during a storm, it's not our problem, it's our neighbor's problem. So have those conversations, because those trees that are surrounding your property also impact you and could impact your premium if you have to file a claim because this tree fell on your house, fell on your garage, fell on something, some other structure that's on your property, etc. So just wanted to point that out.
No, that's a great point, because a lot of times during these events, inland gets affected by the winds. It's not always about the rain. It's about the heavy, the high, and the sustained winds that can cause damage. So that was a great point. But to that point, if your neighbor's tree falls on your property, does it make a sound? Sorry, Pam, that's a reference to the old joke that if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound?
Yeah.
Not if nobody's there to hear it.
Right.
Exactly. And also that's true too, and thanks Amanda for that, but that is also true if you live in an area that there is municipality or township property, open space. A lot of communities build walking paths that, are part of the township or the municipality, and that too will become your problem if the tree falls on your structure. And the last thing about trees though is they could be deadly. It's not just even the structures. It's about the people that they can hit as well. People do die from falling trees. So that's something very important to keep in mind as well. Safety first.
I follow a young man. I followed a young man, a little boy the same age as my son when it happened. So my middle son, this child would have been 10. He was at a play. He was at the at a daycare. They were out it was in Georgia. They were outside, and they were playing, and the wind started whipping up. So the teachers were like, hey, let's get the kids inside. And a tree limb fell on him, hit him in the head, and gave him brain damage. He had a lot of surgeries. He had a rough, short life, and he passed away. I think it was last year. But yeah, so I followed the story. My wife hates me for it because she has kids. They're her babies. They came out of her, and she's like, I can't watch stuff like that. But I would give her updates on it. It would make her mad. But it was breaking my heart. So, but he finally passed away due to his injuries that had occurred. I think he died at 9, and it happened when he was 4. So he lived for 5 years that way. But
there was a gentleman. Go ahead.
To your point, even your trees, like I look at my house and I'm like, well, if any of these trees fell, they would never hit my house. Well, what if they fall or a limb breaks off and it goes tumbling? You know, I have a what do you call it? A trampoline in the backyard that I have 8 spikes in, 8 hooks to hold it down, and I take it down when the wind kicks up. And my neighbors think I'm crazy, but I do it because if that thing becomes an airborne projectile, which it can, and I've seen it happen, it could cause property damage, and it could cause physical damage to people. So you got to pay attention to all that stuff that you think's cool that you're putting in your yard till it blows the hell over.
Yeah, it's very, very true. All right, where were we? We were on the checklist. Any other questions so far on anything? No, I haven't been watching the chat, so Becca or Amanda, if you see anything come in, just holla. Thank you. All right. So again, COVID kind of taught us about being prepared, and people were running out of toilet paper, and people were running out of food, and it was, you'd go to the grocery store and there wouldn't be any meat, and it was hopefully eye-opening to a lot of people about preparation. So for hurricane season, you got to think the same way. You don't know. Hurricane Sandy shut down New York City for over a week. I mean, shut it down. It was, you could not function in New York City for a week. So again, now it's May, let's talk about being prepared. So make your checklist. You want to include necessities like toilet paper, bottled water, non-perishable foods. And if space allows, like create an emergency bin. And we'll talk a little bit more about what should be inside there, but do it now, tuck it away. If you have to be evacuated, are you prepared? Do you have a plan? What do you do with your family members, your animals? And again, we'll get into more detail about each one of them, but I can't stress enough about being prepared for a hurricane.
Hey, Pam, what would you add to this list? I already know one thing that you're going to say, but what would you add?
And the most important part is go ahead now. And like y'all said, get prepared now, because when it hits, everything's off the shelf. Same with COVID. Couldn't find toilet paper for weeks. Everyone was panicking. And same thing with hurricanes. As soon as someone gets word that there might be something that hits, taking everything off the shelf, even if it doesn't hit here, then you're out without supplies, and it affects everybody. So wow, when everything is stocked now, go ahead and get what you need. We stress that enough. And also with our commercial accounts, we're trying to also prepare them. Go ahead, get your sandbags, get ready, have a plan for someone to board your buildings up, because that the week of is not the best time to call Serpro and say, hey, can you board up my windows?
And they were
exactly.
They were the two things that I was waiting for: the sandbags and the wood. You got to have the wood, right? You got to have it in advance, because it's everybody then runs out and buys it. Wooden screws so that you can board up your windows. And Maria so insightfully and correctly stated wine and tequila.
That's what I was cracking up at. Maria, you're spot on.
Pam, you don't know Maria, but we do. And Maria likes her tequila.
Well, it keeps it very interesting for the hurricane then.
Absolutely.
Right. That's awesome. We'll have to redo this slide to make sure we put tequila. On there. All right, let's talk about backup power. That too, you know, when you're talking about, again, community associations, they do have restrictions on generators. So that's something that should be checked prior to just going and getting a generator. For individual homeowners that aren't in an association, though, this should be something you should consider. You can have gas run generators, solar and wind power generators now. But you have to consider, like, when Hurricane Sandy hit us way back when, one, I couldn't get out of my driveway because of a downed tree, but two, we had no power for 6 days. It's the only time in my entire life I was trapped and had no power. Fortunately, I could walk right to the street and have a friend pick me up so I could shower at their house. But my point being, you have to think that worst case scenario. We have no power for 6-7 days, sometimes longer, and I might be stuck. So what's your plan? The one that we're to keep in mind as well is charging your phones, because being in the know of what's going on is very important. Without power, where do you charge your phones? So this particular plug-in you see here, this is meant for your car. A lot of people turn to their cars, but you can actually plug this into the cigarette outlet, and it gives you not only USB cord jacks, but you can actually plug anything in that's a 3-prong plug. You can get this at Grainger.com. It's something every household should have for emergencies and disasters. Mike, do you want to add something to
I was just going
backup
to say,
power?
yeah, there's a ton of products out on the market anymore that aren't that expensive. So there's the old fashioned, I think we all had them when we were kids, the hand crank radio. Well, they now make those same things, the hand cranks that have USBs on them so that you can charge your phone. There are solar panels on these smaller batteries. They're called like Patriot batteries or something, but that it can hold a charge. So you can plug it into the wall to get a charge on it. And then as long as you keep it in the sunlight, it'll continually charge itself so it can charge your devices. And then finally, they sell 120 volt batteries. It's cool technology. I have 2 of them that before I got my generator, I had the one in case my power went out to power my sump pump. So they're pretty powerful. You can plug any item you want, your refrigerator, your freezer. You can't plug a lot of stuff into it or it'll drain the battery quick, but it will get you that temporary power for if you're in an area prone to losing power for 4 to 6, 10, 12 hours, things like that. These things will get you by. Otherwise, that Generac is a lifesaver. I have that exact same one on the side of my house.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just something, again, to consider as you're creating this plan. And going on in a little bit more detail about creating your plan. Before the hurricane, being prepared by listening to your local radio, NOAA radio, or TV stations for information. Know what's coming. Your preparation plans should include, if you have to be prepared to evacuate, know your routes, know your destinations, and then checking your emergency kit and replenish as needed. So this is just kind of the weather says, hey, a hurricane's coming, just quick run through this. But the best thing you can do about your plan, because everybody's plan is going to be a little bit different, is write it down. Like literally pen to paper, write your plan down and discuss it with your family, neighbors, extended family, community associations. You want to, have a meeting, online Zoom with the residents. But you definitely want to communicate this. So looking at a family model, you want to make sure all emergency numbers are stored in everyone's phone. It's always good to pick a person, a relative that is not in your immediate area, that's either in a couple counties over or a state over, that can be the emergency contact person if phone lines go down. But that number should be stored and easily accessible to everybody in your family. So if you get separated, if all crap hits the fan and you don't know where your 16-year-old son is who took the car to go to a soccer game, but if you have it written down that Aunt Sue in Ohio is our contact, you reach out to her if you can't reach each other. And part of that is also designating a meeting location. where this is where we meet. If we can't meet at the house, if our roads are flooded, if we're evacuated, and you pick a place like a fire station or a place of higher ground, that, you know, if it's flooding and there's flash flooding, and only if you can get to that location, but a higher ground location is a good place to definitely have a meeting place. But this has to be communicated so everybody knows this is where we go, this is who we call, and this is how the plan works. In the case of flooding, this should be part of your plan is, you know, we usually get a little window before it actually hits. It's not like oh my God, there's a hurricane hitting. You get a window, you know it's coming. The news shows it in the Caribbean, and oh, it's turning Cat 2, Cat 3, and which way is it going to go? So at those points is where you want to start considering, if you're in that path, like moving things to higher elevation in your house. If you have, you know, a basement, move things up on shelving units. If you have things, if you're on a lower flooding prone area, you know, of the floor, move things up on top of tables, on top of counters. Things of value, you know, put up in the attic. Though, you know, we have seen places like New Orleans where houses were completely underwater. It does happen, but chances are the higher you move things of value and things you want to salvage, the better their chances of surviving a disaster like that. In regards to wind gusts, this should also be written into your plan. You know, everybody in your family should know, stay away from windows. That's where wind can break windows. Glass shattering can be very detrimental, trees coming through them. And while it's happening, if you have not been evacuated, take cover to your interior rooms. We know this, but make sure it's communicated. It's great to remind your family and friends once a year, hey, it's Hurricane Preparedness Month. Let's talk about this. What room do we go in? If you've got little kids, talk to them about it. Where do you go? Is it a bathroom? Is it a center hallway? Have that designated, because trust me, when a disaster strikes, your adrenaline runs and people panic. But the more you practice, it's kind of like a fire drill. If you're practicing how to evacuate your home during a fire, the more you practice, the less you'll panic and the better you will be. It's the same thing with a hurricane or a tornado or any kind of severe weather disaster.
Hey, Robin,
Yeah.
the people on this call, except for Maria, are not of this generation, but did your mother used to tell you that you couldn't get a shower during a storm?
Yeah.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. You can't take a shower. There's a storm going on.
Yep. And you can't eat. You can't go swimming an hour after you've eaten. But also to that point, about the preparedness, what I do, like, I don't do a big thing with my family. We're not in a hurricane zone, but we could lose power. We could have situations happen. So every time there's a hurricane, as ridiculous as this sounds, that's the time, like, even if it's just hitting Texas, like, it has no chance of coming here, I just use it as a time to practice my plan. Like, that's when I go out and I check my batteries. That's when I do a test. Even though it happens once a week, I do a test run through with my Generac. I check my yard. Like, where am I vulnerable? What would I come out here and lay down or bring in or whatever? So they happen often enough that you can use it. That's how you can test your plan. Like, all right, this hurricane's hitting us. Like, it's not hitting Texas. So would my battery be charged if the power suddenly went out? Well, yeah, but it would only be at 35% because I haven't charged it in 6 weeks. So those types of things. And then your food supply too. I'm a prepper, so I have a ton of food supply and a ton of water, 50-year water in the basement. But again, if you're just somebody who picks up a case of water when you need it, you might want to pick up a couple extra cases and just keep them aside.
Well, and you also have to consider, Mike, and thank you. You give me great segues, but that's a great segue into the fact of once if you're evacuated, all of that in your home does nothing for you. You're not going to take all that water. You're going to have your emergency kit to take. But if you're evacuated, you need to write this down, put this in your plan. How will you leave and where will you go if you're advised to evacuate? You want to identify several places, emergency shelters, friend's home in another town, hotels, motels, things of that nature of higher ground, but have that plan of these are the places. And if you have pets, make sure you're picking places that are pet friendly. And we'll talk more about pets because I'm a huge animal lover.
And I know you'll find this hard to believe, but I have 3 giant Pelican boxes loaded with food, water, kids' clothes. I have to update it every couple of months as they grow. My clothes, my wife's clothes, like extra pairs of clothes.
Right, ready to go though.
Those life straws. Like I have medicines that the kids take. I have prescriptions that I put aside. I bought antibiotics online. I have a suture kit. Like I have gone the complete crazy side for somebody who it's not going to happen to, but it's all good stuff for people to know that's out there that it could happen to. Down in Florida, like Pam could get inundated in their area and somebody in her family gets hurt trying to do something to help. And if you don't have a splint, you don't have the proper bandage, you don't have a suture kit, how quickly can you get to the hospital? Well, the hospitals are inundated, or maybe they're not even open because of the power outages or whatever. Exactly. So it's just stuff to think about. That's what this course is, right? Is just keeping your mind open to the options that are out there.
So, and there's something with all of that in regards to evacuation, FEMA.gov. It's a place you should all go to. They have a mobile app. Download the mobile app. So it's on your phone. Don't have to use it all year, but if you ever need it, it's there. And that's where you will find a list of shelters during a disaster in your area. And they also have great tips and, you know, what to do, what not to do. And, you know, FEMA is just a really good go-to place for all those disasters. But check it out, FEMA.gov, and go to, I think it's just mobile-app to download their app on your phone. Also, if you're being advised to evacuate, you want to make sure you have a couple of different routes in place. Like you want to have your destination. This is where we go for evacuated, and this is how we're going to get there. If that road is blocked, this is how we're going to get there. Again, this all just takes thought and you know, time to put together. But if you put your mind to it, it's easy to come up with those routes that, you know, are of higher ground or not prone to flooding. Always follow the instructions of your local officials, and remember your evacuation route could be on foot depending on the type of disaster. So do you have a plan for that? We always ask people like, well, what's your plan? We actually have a podcast called that now. What's your plan? You should always have a plan for disasters. And then, again, like I said earlier, you develop that family household communication and reunification plan so that you can maintain contact with each other in case you are separated, and definitely be reunited. And again, Mike segued into the next slide of your emergency bag. You know, things to include, like Mike said, like he's uber prepared, which is great. Medication is definitely a must, at least a several day supply. First aid kits, tools, batteries, chargers, money, Band-Aids, maps, passport, any documents like that. Every kit's a little bit different based on your area and your needs. Again, one of the big things is, you know, for your pets, pet food. Tuna packs are great. They take up a little bit of space, but they're good food that lasts long. Those tuna packs in the little pouches, they usually have an expiration date like 2-3 years down the road. They're great to keep in that box because you don't have to worry about them going bad. Bottled water, things of that nature. Rain ponchos, beef jerky is another good thing. All good stuff that you should be looking at now in May and making sure you have it together and ready to go, because nobody that experiences a travesty or disaster ever says, oh, I knew this was going to happen to me. So you expect it to happen to somebody else. You expect to see it on the news. But if it happens to you, we really are just trying to give you the best tips on how to protect yourself, save lives, reduce injury. Any other ideas of what?
I know you'll find this crazy, but I have seaweed in mine, packs of seaweed that I bought on Amazon because it's really good for iodine. So It's a really good source of iodine and a lot of other nutrients too. And I made my kids eat it, and half of them like it and half of them don't. But if you need it, you're going to eat it. So.
So the other thing too, just real quick about the emergency kits, redcross.org, they actually sell pre-made kits that have a lot of your necessities in it. You could even go to Amazon and type in emergency kits, emergency bags. They come pre-packaged with most necessities, again, medication and things that are customized to your needs, what can be added to that, but that's all things. And if you're in an area that is prone, you know, throw this in your car, be ready to go. Water rises so quickly, it's astonishing. So you want to be prepared and have it ready to go. Any other questions or ideas for the kit? Anybody have a crazy idea of what they should include besides Maria's tequila and wine? All right. Be informed. Again, emergency alert systems are really the way to go. A lot of different apps for your area can be downloaded onto your phone. Every community has a warning system. If you go to ready.gov, and again, we'll send this to everybody, but if you need any of these links, please just don't hesitate to reach out. But ready.gov/alerts is where you can sign up for alerts for your area. And this is great. Yeah, like Amanda just said something about 2 a.m. You're sound asleep. Well, I'm trying to sleep. Yeah. But think about it, 2 a.m. and suddenly you're having flash flooding and your alert goes off. It at least will wake you up so you know what's going on around you, especially if you're in an area more prone to that flooding. Or the winds, like, you know, you want to be prepared for that. If your bedroom is like, you know, on the corner of a house next to an acre of trees, and that alert goes off, you might want to go downstairs and sleep in the bathroom. So the emergency alert system is very important to sign up for. And just reading some of my notes over here, make sure I got everything. All right, we can go on to the next slide. And we are almost running out of time. So this is perfect. So the last part of this I really want to discuss, because I am an animal lover, is pet preparedness. So many animals get left behind during a disaster or an emergency because people go into a panic mode, and they're, you know, of course you're concerned about your kids and your loved ones, but you can't leave your pets behind. Never chain a dog up to a tree or left alone in a house. Take them with you. You know, a lot of shelters are prepared to take them. I included this picture here in the center. I have chickens, for those of you that don't know, which I think everybody knows I have chickens. But I, unfortunately, during the storms that Texas saw in the last couple of months, many chickens just, you know, got flooded out and killed. And you can take your chickens with you. This is a great tool I learned on a chicken website, but you wrap them in newspaper. They can't fly, they can't move, but they're fine. You're not wrapping it real tight, and you can just stack them along your back seat and on your floor, and they're alive. And then you deal with it. You know, I'm not saying they could stay like this for days, but at least if you can get to your evacuation route or destination and deal with that situation when you get there, you know, but at least you're giving them a chance. So it's really important. And on the next slide, I'm going to go through some emergency essentials for your pets. Obviously, your leash, food and water bowl, any pet medication in the original bottles, and refills if you have that too, because if you need to get it refilled at a pharmacy, you can have that with you. Can opener if you feed wet food. And you want like at least a 2 to 3 week supply of food, water, and litter for your cats. And then most importantly, as a pet carrier, if you have them, especially for the smaller animals. But that's, again, I'm a huge animal lover. And when I see people leave their pets behind, it breaks my heart. So don't forget your furry pets. So in closing, and look at this, 10:59 right on the spot, but you know, it's most important you determine your risk, you know, assess that situation, create a written plan and a channel to communicate that plan inspect your buildings, inspect your surroundings, reach out to your insurance company, get a checkup. If you're an association manager, reach out to your local Serve Pro, get a checkup. You know, I always say you don't want to call Serve Pro in the middle of a hurricane when we're getting 300 calls. Build that relationship beforehand. Get to know your local Serve Pro. That rapport, having direct cell phone numbers will really help. And then your supplies and equipment, your emergency to-go bags, and then don't forget about your pets. And remember, we are here to help.